I think we can probably get started. My name is Arunan. I'm the Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Consumer Protection. And among other things, we license occupational trades. So plumbers and pipe fitters and electricians and sheet metal workers go through us. And so, I was having this conversation with Chris Pitts and Joe Carvalho about, and Chris just said, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I think we're going to try to have a little more of a conversational sort of atmosphere here. But, we were talking about economic development and jobs in Connecticut, and how very often when people talk about jobs, what they're talking about is the traditional, high school diploma to four-year college to maybe some graduate school and then some sort of white collar job. And those are important and those are great. But what we're talking about today is the trades, which is a field that, we know that there are going to be tens of thousands of jobs coming in Connecticut in the next 5-10 years. And it's so important that we identify kids who are well suited for these and start training them up, because, there's a couple of things happening at the same time. There's in all these professions, in all these trades, carpenters and iron workers and sheet metal workers and plumbers and electricians, there's a large class of folks who are getting set to retire in the next 5 years, 10 years. All of our data shows that there's a large group of people who are going to retire, and then a little bit of a donut hole in the middle. So there's all this job, all this work that's going to come up, that we're going to need people in this state to fill. We might have one of the greatest investments in infrastructure in all of our lifetimes from the Biden administration, and people are going to have to build those roads. People are going to have to, build those train tracks, and the labor needs to be here. And it's jobs that can't be outsourced, right? You can't, when you need somebody to fix your plumbing at home, or if you need somebody to build a building in your town, that's a job, that's labor that has to come from here in Connecticut. It can't really be outsourced. And so when we invest in those kinds of jobs, when we invest in that training, what we're investing in is people. We're building equity in the people that exist in the state, and that's long lasting, and that is so significant. And so I'm excited to hear from our two panelists, and I will let them kind of run the show because they're really subject matter experts on this. They're both people in Eastern Connecticut. We've got Elle, Jordyn, Goslin, who's the Talent and Pipeline and Youth Pathways Coordinator for, the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Investment Board. So she's really on the front lines of creating these job pathways, and she's got a little presentation for us, and I think it'll be interesting. And feel free to ask questions along the way. But I'm going to start with Jason Lebel, who many of you know. He's the town chair in Lisbon. I found out he's also on the Planning and Zoning Commission and constable in town, so it seems like he wears all the hats in Lisbon. But his day job is as a carpenter, and you can see him out there in the woods right now. He's a delegate to the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters and a trustee on the labor management program. But he's going to talk to us a little bit about his job and what that looks like. Jason, if you could tell us a little bit about, I think sometimes just an understanding of what a carpenter is and what your job looks like, but also how you got there and what the pathway was like for you. I'll kick it off to Jason first.
All right. Good morning, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, sir. Greatly appreciate that. And so real quick about myself. So I'm a 20-year member of the International Union of Carpenters, and we are currently dealing exactly with what Arunan had said there a minute ago, with the shortage of labor coming in. But how do we curb that? Honestly, it's with opportunity. Organized labor is at the forefront of this labor shortage, but without opportunities, it's hard for us to fill the needs of these apprenticeship classes that we're going to be talking about today. So real quick about myself. So 20 years ago, I was 19 years old. I was fresh out of high school. I'm the son of a carpenter, and I was in the woods banging nails for $14 an hour, getting paid cash, framing houses, and and I had a young baby on the way, and it was what you do. You got to go work to get money. There was no opportunity at the time for me to get into the Carpenters Union, so because there was no work. The way it works with us is we don't just sell books or sell memberships to our union. We have to, we take the appropriate approach, and we make sure that there's a job available for the young lady or the young man that's interested in joining. And so that was the opportunity that came for me. I'm fortunate for my brothers and sisters over, our native brothers and sisters here in Eastern Connecticut at the time. The casinos were going up. So this is the year 2000. The casinos were happening. Pfizer was building in New London. The Providence Place Mall, Gillette Stadium. It's like everything was happening at the same time in southern New England, and that's how those opportunities arose. So in the meantime, I joined the union, and I went through the apprenticeship program. And the apprenticeship program, and when we think about what a carpenter does, we often think about a hammer and a nail. And I came from that world, the hammer and the nail. And I can't do it justice to tell you folks what it is that a union carpenter does, because it's such a broad spectrum. We do everything from install and maintain the very heart of the power plants that provide electricity to everybody that turns a light switch on at home. That's all of our work. The very bedrock that sits under the buildings, the high rises that you see going up in the big cities and everywhere else. That building has to be anchored to that bedrock. That falls under pile driving jurisdiction. Anybody that's gone over the Gold Star Bridge is seeing all the work that's happening down at Electric Boat and everything. That's all carpenter work. So there's a lot of work available out there for carpenters, but when the opportunity arises, we refer to it, the carpenters, as the silver tsunami. We've been dealing with that silver tsunami for the better part of the last, I want to say, 8 to 10 years. We saw it coming. There was a large gap in our apprenticeship program. Our classes were small, but since COVID and even since the economic burst of 08, what's happened with the size of the crews, the man hours that are generated on projects, has actually gone down through skill, ability, training, and also technology. 20 years ago, we were building a lot more scaffolding than we are today. Today, you get in a boom lift and you can go work, you can get almost 200 feet out of a boom lift today. We do swing scaffolding, so we embrace that technology and we move forward. But what did that opportunity do for me as a young man in Eastern Connecticut with no formal college education? Was I went to what I refer to as Carpenter College. So I came into the Carpenter apprenticeship program knowing how to do drywall and knowing how to frame a house. Those were my two skill sets as a carpenter. When I graduated the 4-year apprenticeship program as a journeyman carpenter, I was able to determine excavation through fit and finish, which made me much more marketable as a carpenter. My skills allowed me to go out and earn a very good living to support my family, and that's what it's all about. The benefits that I receive as a carpenter allow my family to go to the doctor, everything else. Everything is covered under insurance. And then we're able to pay our mortgage, drive vehicles, buy groceries, and these are all things that we do locally. So how do you, the Democrat, or whoever's tuning in today, how do you incorporate that? How can you make that available for the folks in your area? It's very simple. If you're a planning and zoning commissioner, or if you're just somebody who is interested in your local area, you can require folks to hire local folks and give them the opportunities that I received 20 years ago for them to provide for their families. I want to say for the last 30 years, this country has really pushed people to go to college, and that's okay. But college isn't for everybody. So what are we going to do with those folks that aren't going to go to college? And I applaud everything that's going on with the manufacturing pipeline. But the building trades are there as well. And not everybody's going to be able to go work in a factory, 40 hours a week, the monotony, et cetera, et cetera. So the building trades offer the exact same thing. And it's excellent. And I'm super excited. Some of the pre-apprenticeship programs that we support, our members are actually employed by as instructors, are just hugely amazing programs that allow folks in underprivileged communities these opportunities that we're talking about. And we put our money right where our mouth is with the Carpenters Union. Recently we have an amazing statistic that's come out with our apprenticeship program. We have reached 51% diversity in our apprenticeship program. And that is just an absolutely amazing thing to see. Our membership, it directly, it's a direct mirror image of the community that's building the projects that we work on. We try to keep our folks local, and that's the way that we're able to make sure that the same communities that are given the tax breaks to the developers, et cetera, that's a clawback that we ask for. We want local folks to work on these projects, and we want them to receive the skills and training so that when that project is done, they can remain employed and employable. That's a huge part of it too. Apprenticeship programs, state certified apprenticeships, federally certified apprenticeship programs. The ABC has an apprenticeship program, and it's a good program. But I just, what scares me sometimes is we see some of these lifetime apprentices. The graduation rates from apprenticeship programs have to be just as closely observed as the rate of apprenticeship programs and everything coming in. I think the follow-up is important as well, and we do that with us, with the mentor program. These young men and women that are coming to us today, on average, are actually in their mid-20s. We're getting a lot of college graduates that come in, can't get a job in their field. They're stuck with the high student loans, and they have to pay them. And we end up with these folks in our ranks, and it's a wonderful thing. We give them that opportunity, and they're able to provide for their families as well as pay back their loans at the same time. And they get and most of them stick with us. Our retention is actually very high, and that's due to our intake program. And that's why these pipelines are very important as well. We talk about these pre-apprenticeship programs, because even what's being taught in the tech schools in Connecticut is a very basic carpentry knowledge skill set. And we have to expand upon that when we bring them into our apprenticeship program. But I think that I've probably talked enough about what it is that we do as carpenters. So I will turn it over. And if anybody has any questions, I'm available here. But I'm going to mute myself because I think Chris said I had a lot of background noise. So any questions, comments, concerns, I can be reached at 860-601-8233. Chris or anybody that's on, if you could pop that up in the comments, I'd appreciate it. I'm limited out here in the woods with technology. So thank you very much. And I hope that everybody enjoys their day and let me speak. Thank you.
That's great, Jason. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna turn it over to Elle, Jordyn, and I think she's got a specific presentation. But I think the big question is there's 16, 17, 18-year-old versions of Jason right now. How do you get them into thinking about the apprenticeship trades? And so, Elle, if you want to kind of take it away, I'd love to hear your presentation.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Elle Goslin. I'm excited to be here today. I work as the Talent Pipeline and Youth Pathways Coordinator for the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Board, but specifically working with the Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative. A little bit about me. I am actually born and raised in Eastern Connecticut. I'm from Plainfield, went to Plainfield High School. I currently live in Hampton, so I see Lisa Thomas here. I live in Hampton. I'm a member of the Quinnipiac Valley Regional Rotaract Club. Love this community, so really happy to be here presenting to the Quiet Corner Democrats. So a little bit about the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Board, so otherwise known as EWIB. EWIB is a nonprofit agency which is mandated through the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and oversees a network of workforce job-related programs in our area. We partner with the American Job Centers and the Connecticut Department of Labor. But today we're going to talk about the Manufacturing Pipeline, which was founded in 2016, and it's a nationally recognized program that provides no-cost manufacturing trainings to unemployed, underemployed, dislocated workers in our area. Again, partners with the American Job Centers and the Connecticut Department of Labor to find them jobs in manufacturing, give them skills to those foundational skills to start a career in manufacturing. So any questions you have throughout the way, feel free to put them in the chat. I do have a time at the end we can talk about some Q&A. So today we're going to talk about what the pipeline is, the types of manufacturing training, participating employers such as the Eastern Advanced Manufacturing Alliance and Electric Boat, training locations, the support services that we offer, how to participate, and to what Jason was talking about earlier, our youth manufacturing pipeline, which is now in 13 schools in Eastern Connecticut and is geared towards students who are going into the workforce post high school rather than taking that traditional college pathway. So what is the pipeline? It was overseen by the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Investment Board, or otherwise known as EWIB. Really, it's in 2016, EWIB recognized that regional manufacturers were growing rapidly and there was a large demand for jobs in manufacturing. Not only that, but a lot of individuals are hitting retirement age. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth as well within these manufacturing companies. An example of that is I work closely with Electric Boat. I serve as a liaison with them and the workforce board. And currently they're anticipating to hire 18,000 people in the next 10 to 15 years. And that's because not only are they designing a new line of submarines, which is 30 feet larger than any submarine that they've created in the past, which doesn't sound that big, but they actually don't have a facility to house that submarine. So there's a lot of construction going on right now at EB to build a facility that they can house that submarine in. But they also anticipate to have 7,000 to 10,000 people retire in the next 10 years. So a big opportunity there, and it leaves the demand for skilled manufacturers to fill those positions. So this program was designed to provide training, entry-level foundational manufacturing training to target underemployed, unemployed, dislocated workers looking to go into a career path in manufacturing. The curriculum is approved, created by the Eastern Connecticut Manufacturing Alliance, as well as Electric Boat. So they've designed the curriculum, they've recognized this curriculum as individuals having those foundational skills that they want to employ. And the program actually has a 90% job placement rate, which is incredible. It's continuing to grow. At this point, we've placed 1,800 people in the past 6 years in jobs, which is really impressive, and we're proud of that. So the training opportunities that we provide are our generic manufacturing pipeline initiative trainings are the Intro to Machine Operator, a plastics class, and a welding class. All of these trainings have like a general assessment that the students have to go through: shop, math, ruler reading, spatial reasoning, that kind of ensures that they'll be successful throughout that training, which we'll talk more about in the next slide. But we also do demand-specific trainings as well. So right now, EB, as they're gearing up their hiring, we actually have 32 classes for the manufacturing pipeline, so we're really busy, scheduled between now and the end of the year in these trades right here. So electrical, pipe fitting, ship fitting, welding, outside machinist, inside machinist, planning, and sheet metal. So those trainings range from anywhere from 6 weeks to 10 weeks, depending on the trade. And again, those individuals get really entry-level knowledge of all of these skills. In our general ones, it's more those EMA employers, Eastern Advanced Manufacturing Alliance, that hire out of there. And then we also do, like I said, the EB specific. So that's really targeted just for EB. So they kind of ask us to do these trainings. We provide them for them and kind of filter the individuals into the jobs there. So our participating employers, the Eastern Advanced Manufacturing Alliance, what is that? It's really a manufacturing alliance in Eastern Connecticut. You'll see in this graphic right here the number of employers that participate and have recognized this curriculum and are committed to interview, if they have job openings, program graduates of this program, as well as Electric Boat. And like I said, the program is designed, they designed the curriculum. Our training classes are located at Three Rivers Manufacturing Apprenticeship Center at Grosso Technical High School, as well as the Advanced Manufacturing Center at Quinebaug Valley Community College. A little plug for these two centers. If you haven't visited them, I would really encourage you to go down and just check out these facilities. You can contact me. I know both the directors there. They would be happy to show you around. Just walking into these facilities, I don't have a manufacturing background, but you really feel the passion and the work that these folks do for our community. It just gives you a whole different feel and appreciation for this kind of trade work. So if you haven't checked these facilities out, I really would encourage you to go down. This is a picture of inside the Manufacturing Apprenticeship Center, and here's our Advanced Manufacturing Center at Quinebaug Valley. Quinebaug Valley does a lot of our machining classes. So they do the outside machining, the inside machining, our intro to manufacturing courses. Whereas at Grosso Tech at the Manufacturing Apprenticeship Center, they do more of the plastics, the welding. Grosso Tech has been so helpful with Three Rivers and allowing them to use their welding shop after hours. So they really have a partnership there going with the college and the high school. I always like to mention that each person that goes through the Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative isn't on their own to find their jobs. They're working with a job developer through one of the American Job Centers, which are located in Montville, Danielson, and Willimantic. So those folks really are assigned to the individual at the start of class and help them connect them with employers. They really work to get to know that individual and match them with an employer that they think they'll be that not only they'll be successful in, but really kind of fits their personality and their need for advancement. They share job postings with them. They invite them to employee recruitments and job fairs. They offer other networking opportunities. They help them with their resume and give them interviewing tips. And they also make the referrals to other services and programs. So they're really that connection between the person, the training, and then the employment. EWIB also does support services throughout these trainings. So if the individual gets enrolled into one of these classes, we help with mileage reimbursement, daycare assistance, books, tools, any kind of PPE they need. We buy boots, hard hats, anything that they'll need to be successful and safe in their trainings. And additionally, we use stipends throughout the training. So it's really an attendance incentive. We encourage the individuals going through the training to treat this like a full-time job. If they miss a day, they don't get paid. So we have a 25% completion. They get 100, 50%, 150, and 100%, 250. So a total of $500 for the full class on top of that, the other support services. So mileage, reimbursement, and such. So it's pretty amazing. It's no cost to the individual, and they're also getting paid to go throughout the training. And then if you want to encourage someone to apply, have them go to EWIB's website, ewib.org/pipeline. They would register there through a quick portal application. It really gives us an idea of what kind of trades training they're looking to, that they're interested in. They make an account on CT Hires. They have to pass that skills assessment, like I was saying, the ruler reading, shop math, spatial reasoning, get a 70 or above in order to get into a training. It really just ensures that they'll be successful in the training. And if they don't pass the first time, they have opportunity to remediate and reassess at a later date. We work with EastCon to do remediation, like 2-week boot camp kind of classes, so that the student can remediate and then reassess and get a higher score and get the opportunity to get into the training classes. They go through an orientation with the Connecticut Department of Labor, and then they get enrolled in whatever training class that individual is interested in going into. And then how to participate, attendance is important, like I said, treating it like a full-time job. At the end of the class, they earn that Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative certificate, which is recognized by all of those area employers from that previous map, including Electric Boat. They earn 150 pre-apprenticeship hours through the Connecticut Department of Labor, And again, they get to work with those job developers to ensure that they'll be successful in their job search and placement. And I did want to talk briefly about the Youth Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative, which I'm really passionate about. It started 3 years ago, and it's now started in 2 schools, and it's now in 13 schools in Eastern Connecticut. I listed the schools right here that we have programs going currently. It's a senior capstone class, so currently we're looking, each school does it a little differently and kind of does a pathway for their students, and it's growing because it's still in its infancy stages as it only started 2 years ago, but it's really geared for high school students who want to go into the workforce post high school rather than college, that traditional pathway. And they do 150 hours of hands-on training in the classroom. They gain those foundational manufacturing skills. And at the end, they receive the same thing that they would get in an adult manufacturing pipeline class. So they get college credits, they get their pre-apprenticeship hours, and that certificate that's recognized by area employers. So really impressive program, continually growing. It's in comprehensive schools, and so different than the trade schools in Eastern Connecticut. And schools are really starting to, generate that interest at an early age for high school students so that they know that this pathway is an opportunity for them as they go throughout their high school career. And then here's my contact information. Since this is virtual, feel free to take a photo of it. There's my email, my phone number, the website that you can go to learn more about the manufacturing pipeline. Please reach out. I'm willing to be a resource in any way that I can for you. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Elle. That was fantastic. I'm going to briefly also mention Jim Lohr is here. He's the deputy director for the New England Carpenters Labor Management Program. I don't know if there's anything, Jim, that you wanted to add to Jason or Elle and what they said.
No, nothing in particular. I do want to mention, though, I thought there was an interesting question that was asked by Timothy Goslin.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Yeah. So I want to, it's interesting that he asked that, because I do think, sometimes the federal politicians.
Let me just, Jim, let me just read the question for the people who can't access the chat, but it's in what various ways might the free college/free community college proposals also include and emphasize the idea that advanced trade education be included as well? I know it's not their intention to admit it, but the federal level Dems don't seem to mention it much. And I'm seeing the GOP start to exploit that and push blue collar/white collar divide and some younger tradespeople believing them. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think that's actually a great point. There are some Democrats at the federal level, I was going to say, who really, advocate this and talk about it. So for instance, Tim Ryan, who's running for the Senate out in Ohio, or the current Senator Sherrod Brown as well, too, is somebody who talks a lot about, the issues, the opportunities, the blue collar training. But I do think it's fair to say that Republicans are starting to talk more, and trying to reach out to blue collar workers. And there's definitely, a divide, that they're trying to exploit, politically and take advantage of it. So I think that's a great observation. And it's just something that I think, the reality is, even in a state like Connecticut, which has a high college participation, a high college graduation rate, it's still about 2/3 of the people haven't graduated from college in Connecticut. So you need opportunities that are going to allow people to go into the middle class. So I just applaud what's being done in terms of the, workforce board out in Eastern Connecticut. That's an amazing program. We have some of the things that she talks about, are part of our apprenticeship program. So if, somebody's gone to Votech High School, that type of thing, they can come in a little higher up in our apprenticeship program. So it's almost like if you're a kid who took AP classes, and then you get some college credits on that. And then on top of that, we have some affiliations with some of the universities as well, too. So If there's a program at Worcester Poly where you can go on the weekends and take construction management courses, and you get credit if you've gone through the apprenticeship program, with the Carpenters Union. So I think all those things that are ladders and pipelines and, allow people to, grow in the industry, because there's so many different opportunities and ways you can go. And, what I love about construction is it's like, and I'm sure to some degree it'll be the same way with the manufacturing, is you can literally start as an apprentice and end up running companies. And we have a bunch of folks who started at the bottom, as apprentices, worked their way through up, then, running jobs and running work, and said, hey, you know what, I want to take a shot and run a company myself. And they've gone on to run their own companies. So that's really exciting to see, and really is kind of the American dream. It's not easy, but it can be done. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jim. Thank you for that. I see Chris's hand up, and Max has an excellent question in the chat, and Lisa, I think, also had a question. I just want to really quickly, does Elle or Jason, do you want to respond quickly to Timothy Ghislaine's question on the free college proposals and incorporating this into it?
Absolutely. Actually, I just saw the last question that came up. Can you read that one, please?
Sure. From Lisa, she said, I think we need to discuss.
Before that one, I'm sorry.
Okay. Max,
Yep.
What are the largest challenges for an individual trying to explore a career in the trades?
So Max, I can really only speak for the Carpenters on this one. There is an informational session that anybody that wants to get into the Carpenters Union has to attend. Everything that they need to know about joining is available to them in that information session. And that is actually all part of our intake process. We have actually recently, in the last 3 to 4 years, revamped our entire intake process. It costs us about $12,000 a year to train one apprentice. So we had to look very hardly at our intake process to avoid washout. We were finding in the first and third years of apprenticeship, we were losing apprentices at an alarming rate. So how do we stop that? We had to revamp our intake process. It's very similar to a Fortune 500 company intake process, where we determine whether or not the individual has the grit and the determination to have that 30-year career of being out in the hot sun, the pouring rain, or, I can't tell you how many times I work in the wintertime and I come home with snow on my shoulders still. And it takes a special individual to do that. So, and it's a good intake process, and we're able to determine that grit, because we can teach anybody how to be a carpenter with our apprenticeship program, if they have the willingness to learn, and that's also determined there. So it's a very smooth, easy process to join. And you got my phone number in the chats. If you have anybody that's interested, have them reach out and I'll provide the link.
Jason, I'll just say briefly, for the licensed trades, plumbers, pipe fitters, sheet metal workers, HVAC technicians, electricians, we at DCP, after I got there, we put together a trades guide that just came out a few weeks ago, and we tried to be as comprehensive as we could. So we talked to tradespeople in each of the trades. We talked to the Department of Labor. We talked to our own occupational tradespeople. And tried to think through everything you need to know about the process of getting into an apprenticeship school. Where are the apprenticeship schools? Where are scholarship monies? I saw that Elle mentioned in their program they help with childcare, and that's something a lot of people don't think about. You might have to drive to Stanford one day in your apprenticeship program, and then drive to Eastern Connecticut the next day, and something in the Northwest corner the next day. And so having transportation, having childcare can all be obstacles. And so I'm going to throw in the chat the trades guide that we came up with at DCP. And our hope is to get it in the hands of as many people as we can who might know somebody, and this goes to Lisa's question, which I'll get to in a moment, who might know somebody who would consider the occupational trades. But I'm going to call in Chris Pitts real quick because he's had his hand up for a little bit, and then I want to get to Lisa's questions because those are really good as well.
Thanks, Arunan. So I have a question, basically this is directed to you, Jason. As both a union guy, a carpenter, and a local town government and DTC guy, you're speaking to primarily a room full of folks that are really active locally. What can we be doing in our local town government or on our Democratic Town Committee to help bring in good jobs and be on the right side of the issues to increase the local good jobs?
Okay. Thanks, Chris. And there's some folks on here that have seen my presentations at their local DTCs. And if anybody wants me to come to their local DTC to speak about this, I'm willing to do that. I did it for the last 2 years during campaign season, and it was successful. So we're all, if you're a local politician, what do you do to make sure that the folks in your community have these opportunities at these apprenticeships? Or if they're a skilled tradesman, how do they have an opportunity to work on these projects? Tax incentives, whatever it is that we do to lure in the development, we have to make sure that we provide something back to our communities. And it's not just a sidewalk or a new stop sign. It's putting language out there in the bid documents or even in the RFQs and RFPs, because everything starts with an idea. And then, how do we make sure that our local folks have these opportunities to work on these projects? A dollar earned in a local community by a local person goes through so many hands locally, and it's important that folks understand that. So how do we protect that? How do we keep our money locally? Because construction is a very transient, industry. If you build a large project, people come in to work on these projects, and then when the project is done, they leave and they take their money back to where they came from. So we want to keep the money in our communities as part of economic development for our communities. So if we put, if we raise that bar, or if we set standards in our communities, whether it's local higher language, apprenticeship requirements, minority requirements, whatever it takes to make sure, put it right in the bid documents. Responsible contractor ordinances go a long way. But the enforcement piece, the follow-up piece needs to be there too. We need to demand that we have a certified payroll that eliminates cash payments, because not only do we want to create the opportunity for our folks to have these jobs in these careers, but we also want to provide the training so we can demand that they have a state certified apprenticeship program, and that 15% of those apprentices are from the town or the county, whatever it is that are a 3-town area, whatever it is that we have a pool of labor to draw from. We have to make sure that we incorporate that when we put these projects, at the very beginning. If there's a fence up and there's equipment on site, it's too late to enact this. It has to start when folks come to town that they want to develop. It's very simple. You hand them a piece of paper, say, great, here's the rules if you want to build in our town. And it protects your local community. That's the best way that we've been able to have positive, really positive outcomes on these construction sites. And it's not an easy lift. And it's even within this party, I meet some resistance from time to time. And I tell folks that, if it wasn't for these opportunities, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. I'd still be banging nails for $14 an hour in the woods, like I started when I told my story. So, that's one of the best ways that I found locally for us folks to really band together. And, if anybody here wants a little further education, has questions, anything, my number is right there in the chats, and I'm available 24/7. Leave a message, I'll get back to you. So,
Jason, if you have any sample language for those kinds of ordinances or so forth, if you would send them to me, I'll put them in the documentation for this event so
okay,
people can look at them.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So, unfortunately, I'd have to check with legal before I share it with you, but yes, we can definitely get something. I know that I have something from Lynn, Massachusetts. That was the most recent piece that we were able to get passed by a local community. And it's a very good piece of language. And not only does it cover construction, it covers things like restaurants and retail. So these are some of the things that we don't also think about all the time. how do we keep these jobs local, all of them? And you can do things like that, and you can protect your community and make sure that folks that live in your community work in your community. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Lisa, I was just about to read your questions, but I'll let you summarize your questions, and then I'll probably call on Elle first to at least talk about how you talk to high school kids about the choices in the trades. But Lisa, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up quickly on what Jason was saying. So with the councilwoman's hat on, I know that what sometimes comes up at council table is the cost of some of these agreements. And so I was just thinking about Eastern Connecticut, and Jason, what you were saying about having language that you'll hire a certain percentage of tradespeople from your community, but then you went on to talk about or from the county or from several communities. And that sounds like it would make a lot of sense in Eastern Connecticut, where we don't necessarily have the population numbers in an individual town, but to have incentives to do some of that regional connecting and encourage that sense of working together. That might be an approach that would work. I don't know if you've seen that in our local communities or not.
I have actually, and some of these, we're seeing it happen along 395. Speaking of Eastern Connecticut, there's elderly housing, assisted living, even low income housing that's starting to happen in the area. And a lot of these are getting tax incentives and tax breaks that are coming out of Hartford, out of the state. And believe it or not, there's language in these loans and in these tax breaks that they have to hire, and it's not, and the numbers and everything is already there. It's just that there's no enforcement on the end of it. And the language is actually pretty good. They're talking about 30% local, low income workers. And that language is attached to some of these projects. But it's the enforcement side, I started doing a lot of work on trying to shore up the enforcement before COVID hit. And we all know what happened when COVID hit. So it was difficult. But if we could get, anything we can do to make sure that contractors, developers are following, the actual rules that they're already agreeing to when they sign the bottom, that's another piece. And that locally, and you're talking about the cost. I don't agree. The cost is not more expensive when we do these things. It's not. Because if you get a low, if you get a low number, I've seen it and I've actually fixed it. All right. I've gone into projects that, sure, they got a really low number from this contractor. Well, guess what? That community unfortunately had to pay twice because we went in there, ripped everything out and had to basically rebuild. And it takes twice as long and it's twice as expensive when you have to go in and fix somebody's stuff. So we want quality. If I'm paying my tax money to put a building up, I want a darn good building. I want the best people that I can find to put that building up. That's what I want. I want that building to stand as long as I'm alive and then for future generations to come. So that's the best way to come back at the cost issue.
I'm just thinking or experiencing comments, from the political angle when you're sitting at a council table or a selectman's table, and the mumbling and grumbling about minimum wage and it's destroying our lifeguards and we can't hire anybody. And, and I completely know what you're talking about. So
heaven forbid that we should actually pay somebody a livable wage. I mean, come on.
Exactly. So I'm just trying to think about what other incentives or out of the box thinking could be put together to push back against that kind of conversation.
Oh, absolutely, Lisa. And anytime, just give me a call. I got plenty of, I got samples of, and I got everything from a paragraph to a 30-page document, that you can plug and play. So it's doable.
So my other comments in the chat just come from my perspective as an educator. Back in about the 2009 to 2013 timeframe, there was this huge push in Connecticut. It was part of a national push called Project Opening Doors. And I've kind of been on a soapbox about this for a couple of years now. But Project Opening Doors was all about pushing every single student to take advanced placement classes. Every single student doesn't want to take advanced placement classes, and that mindset doesn't, fit the goals of every single student. But I think what happened during that time is we established a mindset that if we are not telling our children from a very young age that they're going to go to college, then we're not doing the right thing as parents and as educators. And I think we're still trying to overcome that. And so I see initiatives at the high school level, but I'm not seeing those initiatives at the grade school level. We still have grade schools where they have all their banners on their walls, I'm going to go here to college, I'm going to go there to college. This hallway is called Princeton Hallway. And so there's some messaging that I think we need to change. And, we had legislation just this session that's asking UConn to start taking a look at that and addressing that for agriculture K-12. But where is that for the skilled trades? And, and it's happening at the high school level for the manufacturing pipeline, but I'm not seeing or I'm missing where it's happening for those skilled trades. And I just had multiple contractors in my house redoing my kitchen and dining room, and every single one, the electrician, the carpenter, all, they're all saying there's nobody coming. There's nobody coming to fill my shoes.
Elle, do you have
All
any
right.
thoughts?
Yeah, so we do take that hard look at that. But when we make the rounds. I know me personally, I make the rounds in Eastern Connecticut to the schools. I know that we were at an event last weekend in it escapes me. Lisa, you could probably help me with this one. The tech school in Danielson.
Ellis Tech.
Finally.
Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry. I knew Elle would get that. So, so we were up at Ellis last week, and actually, we're actually in the middle of a large push, and maybe Lisa and Elle could help us with this one. Is our Sisters in the Brotherhood? We're looking to go 30% female, female carpenters. 30% of our membership we want to be female, and I think the date was it was a relatively recent date. I think it was like by 2024 or 2026 is one of our council goals as the carpenters to attract more women to the trade of carpenters. And I think that we'd be missing the boat if we didn't go into the junior high schools, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade students, and doing that. We've had discussions about that, and we're working on that as an organization. So it is, because it is a resource, and I knew when I was in 6th grade, I knew I wanted to be a carpenter, but because everybody was pushing me to go to college, that's why I didn't. When you hear me tell my story, I started as a carpenter at 19. There's a reason there. I went away for a year of college. It's not for me. It's not for me. And that's why I ended up, and it was because of that push, everybody in school, my poor mother, she was bombarded, everybody was telling her I need to go to college, and, we made it happen, but it wasn't for me. So that's how I ended up as a carpenter. So, it's, and that's why it's important. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. The junior high age students should definitely be getting visits from the trades.
Yeah, Lisa, you're on the same soapbox I am. That's why I wanted to get into this field. I'm so passionate about careers post high school rather than the traditional college pathway. I think it's a culture shift within the schools that need to happen, and it needs to happen earlier. It's in middle school. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, 12, 13-year-old students having to decide whether to go to a comprehensive school or a trade school, and that's kind of their only pathways. If they choose to go into a comprehensive school, they're kind of stuck in just that academics and not so much having any resources within their school to go into the trades, which I think programs like the manufacturing pipeline are kind of starting that process in the comprehensive schools. I will say that Electric Boat does a youth explorer program geared towards middle school students. It's Saturdays throughout the year. They just work at the Manufacturing Apprenticeship Center, QVCC's Advanced Manufacturing Center, and kind of introducing that pathway to them earlier on in their middle school, while they're in middle school. EWIB has talked about, it's not created yet, but has talked about introducing this kind of youth manufacturing pipeline earlier in middle schools. It's definitely in progress, but something that hasn't really taken off yet, but it's definitely a conversation. But I totally agree with you. it needs to be, the culture needs to shift. And I think it is, because, you know, I have a lot of student debt, and I think younger generations are realizing that, looking at their older peers and family members and seeing how much debt that they are in, and not really wanting to choose that pathway right out of high school, or, you know, talking to them about the opportunity that a lot of these employers will pay for advancement while they're in go straight into the workforce. So whether you go into a trade or whatever it may be, a lot of these employers have those incentive programs, as long as it's a way that they can advance within their company to get a higher education. So I think it's really providing resources and starting these conversations earlier in freshman year, but especially, you know, middle schools as well.
I would just echo one thing real quick too, is, you know, when I was growing up in junior high school, you were required to take, you know, shop class, cooking class. We, even as guys who played sports and stuff, had to take sewing and, you know, others, you know, so it just seems crazy to me that there's not a requirement in junior high school. You know, I would throw in a finance class as well too, you know, even at that age, you know, because the things that, you know, all these things just getting exposed to in junior high, hey, you might decide to go a different path, you know, and maybe the career, you know, the college thing and coding and all that stuff is wonderful for you. But I do think as a kid who grew up, I had a dad who was a chemical engineer, but he also had a wood shop in the basement, you know, and that was kind of his therapy, was to go down into the basement, you know, and work on, you know, with his tools and stuff like that. So I would just encourage that as much as possible. And it may be something that we can push, you know, for instance, on a state legislative level or with boards of ed and that type of thing.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was campaigning in Eastern Connecticut last year in 13 towns that extended from Vernon to the Massachusetts line with, you know, Woodstock and Pomfret and all, every single person I spoke to, no matter whether they were center, right, or left, the one place where we could find common ground was the need to support skilled trades, our carpenters, our pipe fitters, our plumbers, our electricians. People didn't feel there was support, there wasn't training, and that there was a huge hole, that there just aren't enough people. And I think that's, you know, putting on a political hat, a really important road that we need to pursue vigorously and get that figured out.
Thank you, Lisa. So folks, that time is almost here. First, I want to thank all of you for joining us, for being a part of this. I especially want to thank our speakers, Arunan and Jim and Jason and Elle, for sharing their expertise with us. You've got 5 minutes to take a break, refresh your coffee, and log into your next session. And we'll all be back together for Chris Murphy and Jim Himes.